Now let's move on to argument number 2. The idea that we have other priorities and we simply can't focus on this right now.
We cannot do everything we want. We must prioritize. And when you prioritize, you are in the uncomfortable position of saying, here is this very valuable thing which should happen and which I can do, and I am not going to do it right now.
And on the question of what specifically should be a higher priority than repealing Don't Ask, Don't Tell, you mentioned 3 things.
Peak oil, climate change, and the collapse of our fractional reserve banking system. Because each of those has the potential, I don't think anyone heard this, has the potential to bring our civilization down around our ears.
I heard you, Mr. Craven. And I understand these other things are even more important than repealing Don't Ask, Don't Tell. But I still don't think it's an either-or proposition. Now, you said that we can't focus on Don't Ask, Don't Tell at the present time because...
Because of the limited political clout that is available to lawmakers in Washington, D.C.
Now, what is political clout? Where does it come from? Well, essentially, it comes from the people, right? People paying attention to you, people writing letters in support of you, sending donations, people trusting you, right? And people voting for you. And if a politician feels that he's got this base of people that are supporting him and trusting him and all of that, then that politician can go and break outside the box, provided that's what his constituents want, right? That politician can get things done, can solve major problems if he has that support, because he knows he won't be kicked out of office, he'll have more financial support, etc., etc., and eventually this translates into being able to get more stuff done on the floor of the House or the Senate or working in the White House. So just to be clear though, the quality of the politician depends completely on the quality of the supporters, because if people are supporting the politician just blindly, then he can get away with whatever. But if people are, informed and aware and all that stuff, then they can demand that specific things be done, and that politician, if he knows that people will support him when X, Y, and Z are completed, will go ahead and accomplish X, Y, and Z, and he'll have the ability to do that. Now this is going to be important in a couple of minutes after you explain your thought experiment.
Consider the thought experiment where we choose to focus on repealing Don't Ask, Don't Tell. It's going to be a bitter fight, you know that. We'll use up a lot of political will, capital, time, and energy. And gays and lesbians get to serve openly with honor and distinction and pride in the military. But as a result of spending all that time on repealing Don't Ask, Don't Tell, we don't have the time and the energy amongst the electorate to really deal with peak oil. And so we end up facing the catastrophic contraction of energy scale and the social disintegration and chaos that is likely to come from being ill-prepared for peak oil. And then everyone suffers, so it would be a lousy trade-off. When I think through the likely probabilities, that seems like a greater danger.
I understand your concerns, but allow me to offer an alternative thought experiment. Supposing the Democrats repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and yes, that would take some political capital, but then suppose this next logical conclusion. The Democrats' base, the liberal voters, the Democratic-leaning voters, would be happy to see this, wouldn't they? And they'd be glad to have finally an unadulterated victory, because healthcare wasn't exactly what we were looking at. Financial reform, still not exactly. And Democrats have bungled things in so many ways for a long time, but particularly these last few years when they've had Congress and then they took the White House. Now, if Democrats can show a little spine and get something done that their base is very happy for, then what do Democrats get out of that? They get clout. They get more capital. And this is particularly urgent with November coming up, and they can keep some seats, and perhaps keep majorities in both houses of Congress. But that would be a little more effective, and not just effective for the Democrats. I'm not here to make things easier on one party versus the other, just ideologically speaking. But we're talking about, for instance, fighting global climate change. And if you're going to fight global climate change in the political arena, it's obvious that of the two major parties, the Democrats are the better ones to work with. And the Democrats are the ones looking to repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and they're the ones who would receive a groundswell of support, to some degree at least, if Don't Ask, Don't Tell were repealed. And so that could easily work out and help you with global climate change. You're going to need political capital for that, right? And my theory here is this. Supposing we spend the political capital necessary to repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell, but then from the support of the liberal base, which is happy to have this clear progress on this one issue at least, that support creates more political capital. So we spend some, gain more, and the Democrats are in a better position to deal with global climate change. Now granted, I can't be certain that's exactly the way the political capital would work out, but I think it's a pretty reasonable idea, don't you? And yes, of course, it's true that if they repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell, a lot of Republicans would be quite pissed, but the Republicans are kind of already pissed. I'm not convinced that they would get so much more pissed as to cancel out the benefits of Democratic voters, liberal voters, finally feeling happy about something the Democrats have done. Finally feeling something is done right. So again, you could spend some clout, spend some political capital, and then gain more, and actually be in a better position to deal with the issues that you mentioned. Another thing that you mentioned is that repealing Don't Ask, Don't Tell would divide the nation.
It will cost a lot of political clout. It will further divide a very divided republic right now to push that through.
Sir, Don't Ask, Don't Tell is going to be divisive no matter what you do. If you repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell, the Republicans and conservatives are going to be angry. If you don't repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell, the Democrats and liberals are going to be angry. People are going to be angry no matter what you do. And seeing as it's anger this way or anger that way, we might as well do it the way that's right, the way that makes sense, the way that's supported by the data that I showed you earlier. But anyway, you made another point about priorities.
Those in the comments who said that we should repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell right now were prioritizing. They were saying we should do this right now instead of, they didn't say this part, but it was implicit, or the implication was, instead of doing these other things. I think we should acknowledge that if you say we should do this right now, that means we are not going to do these other things right now.
Yes, but we would deal with those issues slightly in the future. After we've spent some political capital, done something right, rallied the base, gotten more political capital that way, which we can use to spend on the big issues. And I believe, at least it's reasonably possible, that by dealing with Don't Ask, Don't Tell, we can actually become more effective at dealing with global climate change and these other issues. So really, I think it's simple. Repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Thanks for watching. See you later.